Hi guys, Brett Manning here again, trustee of the new Aussie Constitution Trust. The new Aussie Constitution is a proposed replacement draft for the Australian Constitution. You can find out more about that by looking at the first video in the series. And particularly today we're going to look at the tiers of government: Commonwealth, state and local. It's interesting that since we've been promoting the new Aussie Constitution, some of the feedback we've been receiving is about this area of Commonwealth, state and local government. There's a feeling that Australia is over-governed. We have too many levels of government. It's been suggested in some of the feedback that we should in fact do away with the state governments completely and just have a Commonwealth and local government. But the new Aussie Constitution, as it's drafted at the moment, retains Commonwealth, the states and local government. And for the first time, local government is properly defined, which it isn't in the current Australian Constitution. It's not even mentioned. Well, the current Australian Constitution lists a whole series of reserved powers for the Commonwealth, and they are powers exclusive to the Commonwealth, such as providing defence. It's quite a long list, but it is restrictive in that the Commonwealth is not allowed to stray outside those areas listed, and the rest of the powers for making laws passed through to the states. So this was set up a federation of states when the first constitution was drawn up. But now Australia operates pretty much as a single country. And the new Aussie Constitution draft reflects that and changes the way the Commonwealth and the states interact. The new Aussie Constitution retains the list of exclusive powers for the Commonwealth, and they're fairly similar to those powers that are listed in the current Constitution. But it doesn't limit the government, the Commonwealth government, from making laws about any matters that it thinks are appropriate. So we move to a more national system where the Commonwealth can make laws about anything to do with the activities within the Commonwealth. So I want to read you a clause out of the draft new Aussie Constitution that deals with an important aspect of the way government will operate. This is clause 11.3a of the new Aussie Constitution. Key principles of the three-tier government are, to the most reasonable extent practicable, only one tier of government shall legislate and manage in respect of each component of governance and or government service delivery, and all funding for each government matter or area of service delivery shall be provided to, managed and expended by that tier of government responsible for it. So the aim here is that we don't have state and federal legislating on a particular issue or managing a particular issue or providing a service. So if the states are responsible for hospitals, the states provide all the services in relation to hospitals and they receive all the funding necessary to manage hospitals. If the states are looking after education, the states receive all the funding for education and provide all the schools and the services related to education. So we've got a crazy system at the moment, and if I understand it right, the Commonwealth provides funding to private schools and the states provide funding to government schools. Any one child should get the same level of support from Australia for their education, irrespective of whether they go to a private school or a public school. The Commonwealth funding to those schools from Commonwealth of Australia should be the same for all children. If in the private school circumstance parents pay additional fees to get additional services, different courses, more facilities, that's fine. But every child in Australia should get the same amount of funding from the Australian government. And it should only be delivered by one level of government. So either state or the federal, but not both. Another change in the new Aussie Constitution that makes the country operate more nationally rather than a federation of states is that the Commonwealth will be the only one authorised to raise any taxes. So the states will no longer be able to raise taxes, and for that reason we get rid of all the very inefficient state taxes that currently exist. All funding is raised by the Commonwealth. How this works is the Commonwealth takes the money that is raised from taxation and applies the money necessary to the Commonwealth activities and running the Commonwealth, providing for defence, foreign affairs, any other areas that the Commonwealth is looking after, such as Medicare, for example. And then all the funding that remains after the Commonwealth obligations are met is passed on 100% to the states. And the states provide the service delivery for things like education, health, and so forth. So under the new Aussie Constitution, the Commonwealth would provide legislation and management in relation to the reserve matters, things such as defence, foreign affairs, and so forth. It would also deliver on matters of national significance. For instance, it might be more efficient, and it appears to be, to deliver Medicare nationally. So the Commonwealth would retain that sort of national responsibility. The other role of the Commonwealth is to set national standards. If the states are going to manage education, for instance, the Commonwealth might set minimum national education standards, but it'll be the states that will deliver those services, will develop specific curriculum, and will receive all the funding necessary for delivery of those services. So an analogy for the way the Commonwealth will operate is like a board of directors of a company. Basically, it would set national direction, would set standards, and it would provide the resources to the areas of government service that are necessary. The role of the states would be to deliver on government services, and to do that in a way that best suits that particular state's needs. States would also look after domestic law and order. They would manage local government, and they would seek to meet the national standards set by the Commonwealth. But how they deliver those services and how they meet those standards will be up to the state governments. So they're, in the analogy of a company, they're like the general managers of divisions, and they determine how the states run from day to day and how they deliver services to the community. And in this way, we get the best service delivery that's relevant in a particular regional area. And the third tier in this arrangement would be local government, and it would do much the same things that it does now. So its focus is on local services and local welfare issues. And the local governments would be managed by the states. So I guess a question you might be asking is, how do we determine how much money goes to each state? Under the new Aussie Constitution, all taxes would be raised by the Commonwealth. So we'd have a single source of funds that would then be used initially for Commonwealth requirements. The balance would then pass to the states. And effectively, this simple answer is that the funding would be distributed on a per capita basis. So, number of people in your state, so that everybody gets the same share of the money. But clearly, when it comes to delivering different types of services, it's easier to do that in some states than it is in others. For instance, if we took health, the delivery of health to inner Sydney would be at a different cost to delivering health in far north Queensland or delivering health in Kununurra. And so we do need to have a formula that adjusts, starting with per capita basis, so we share out evenly, so every Australian effectively gets the same amount of service, but then it needs to be adjusted for delivery of those services. So if it's delivery of roads, it would be adjusted for the size of the road network and the population densities in the different areas, and a formula would be derived for that. And the same would apply to education, health, and each of the service delivery areas. And then the funds were distributed on that basis. And so it would be very consistent in the longer term. Would be based on where the population in Australia lives, and it could be refined over time for the formulas to get it as accurate as possible. So the key takeaways here are, we're retaining, under the new Aussie Constitution, we're retaining 3 tiers of government. The Commonwealth can legislate on more than just the reserved matters. So the Commonwealth has all encompassing responsibility for how governance is delivered to Australia. And then the states will provide the bulk of the service delivery, government service delivery, law and order, and general services to the people. It's a key point that each function of government, or each service, will be delivered only by one level of government. So either the state will have responsibility, or the Commonwealth, or local, but not all 3. And whoever has responsibility for that area receives all the funding that's allocated to that area. Only the Commonwealth can raise taxes, so we get rid of the inefficient state taxes. All money comes from the Commonwealth. With the taxes that are raised, the Commonwealth takes out the requirements of the Commonwealth Government and passes all of the remaining funding to the states for service delivery. So if you want more information about the new Aussie Constitution, please visit the website. You can download a copy of the Constitution draft, or you can just spend some time looking through individual clauses. If you like this video, or you think that it's time that we had a new Australian Constitution, then please like the video, share it, follow the new Aussie Constitution Trust so that you receive new videos as they become available. If you want to make comments or ask questions, feel free to do so, either below this video or on the website itself. Thanks very much for your time.